What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, Fightful.com here on the SRS Wrestling channel. If you want to find out what's up with all that, I got a whole dedicated video. But for now, this is where our shows are streamed at. Sometimes when Warren streams shows, you can check them out at youtube.com/Warren Hayes. But if you've got the question, where is this podcast? Where is that podcast? They're always at Fightful.com. We will get this sorted out. But we've got WWE TLC to talk about. We had UFC last night, NWA Into the Fire, Ring of Honor Final Battle this weekend, Smackdown Friday, Raw tomorrow night. There's too much happening. And we have Dave Schilling here to talk about this particular event. Dave, how you doing?
Oh, so good. I mean, better now that the show is over.
Back by popular demand. People liked you on the show last time.
It feels good to know that the kids out there still support me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, guys, make sure you follow Dave. I would like to have had a lower third prepared, but unfortunately, the messy week that was kind of set me back on a few things. But you'll get Dave's social media info towards the end of this show. No super chats right now, but you can subscribe to Fightful Select. I'm doing a Q&A show this week. Ask as many questions as you want if you're a subscriber. FightfulSelect.com. But let's go ahead and get this started. Pre-show, Humberto Carrillo defeated Andrade. Andrade had been undefeated going into this week. Now he drops back-to-back matches to Carrillo. Some really good athleticism here, Dave, but there are some spots that I hate. I hate the double foot stomp. I'm going to cry and bitch about it every single time that I see it. Every single time Humberto Carrillo sits there hanging for 9 seconds. I timed it. 9 seconds. Hey, man, what's going? You're not gonna stomp me, are you? You wouldn't do that, would you? Because I'm just sitting here.
There is a lot of contrived spots in professional wrestling. This is one of them. Obviously, one of the more contrived spots is a double foot stomp. But also, just to go back to AEW from this last Wednesday, the street fight. The whole in the trash can thing. Like, there's so much of this where it takes me out of the match. I can't focus on the drama, the emotion, any of the physicality if it's obviously a contrived spot where the violence is just cartoonish.
I can suspend my disbelief a bit, and I give a lot of leeway to stuff. I just want it to at least be in the realm of possibility of making sense. And there's going to be a lot of spots that we talk about tonight like this, but some decent work and a couple really good athletic guys. Andrade gets busted open pretty well. It's hard for me to invest in anything in general. One, because Carrillo's got no character. He's got nothing for all the criticism I hear about any other show, whether it be NXT, AEW, Ring of Honor, Impact, or even SmackDown. I point to this guy. This is the prototypical. He does very cool-looking moves, but has no sense of character behind him. The thing is, if he had gotten busted up instead of Andrade, I think that would have went an awful long way in something like this, because he's supposed to be the young guy that is kind of overcoming things, but I'm not quite seeing it right now.
I said this in my newsletter, and I'll say it again. I think he should be a heel. He's too cute. He's got those dimples and that smirk, and it's just... it all is gross. I don't mean to insult the man, but he's too handsome.
Yes, he's too
handsome
pretty.
To the point where I just want to flick him in the face or kick his shins or something.
I think that he could follow a formula that I think would work with Apollo Crews too. Like, Apollo Crews seems like one of those guys that is so nice that you would believe he's not genuine. Even if he were just being himself, you would think, man, there's no way. It's like when we see Ricochet saying, well, I'm just a normal guy, and by golly, some people may say I'm a superhero, but I'm not. I'm like, you can do a 630. You're not just a normal guy. And I mean, Carrillo or Apollo Crews.
Professional wrestlers are not normal people.
Yeah.
They're really athletic, jacked human beings that can do insane things. And so trying to bring them down to the level of I'm just like you. I like to eat hot dogs and apple pie and watch football. It's that's not interesting to me. Yeah. These are larger than life heroes. Humberto Carrillo is unfortunately the victim of things changing and creative. There were a lot of plans for him that didn't go anywhere because of a variety of reasons that I probably shouldn't talk about. But there are things that
you can.
No, I shouldn't.
You can.
There are things that could have been done that were going to be done with him that unfortunately couldn't be done because of extenuating circumstances. So right now he's just kind of like floating around WWE with nothing really to do. So their answer is always, well, he speaks Spanish. This guy speaks Spanish. Let him wrestle, which is not enough. There needs to be reasons for these guys to fight.
I already had respect for Andrade, but I gained a great measure of respect when he showed up unadvertised at a media day in Toronto and did like 20 interviews in English, which is a language he's still learning and working to learn. And I know that he asked about how he could improve his position, and he was told learn English, and he's trying to learn English. And I mean, that's intimidating for a lot of people to do in their first language, much less one that they're just learning. So a lot of respect there, and they got to give Carrillo some edge. It's just
anything, a character, a catchphrase, better music, a flashier entrance, just something that's going to make people have a reason to like him, a reason to care about his matches. Because right now I have zero reason to care.
Well, he does have one of the best moonsaults I've ever seen. That thing is a beauty.
Absolutely.
Beauty. He seems like he gets like more hang time than anybody else on all of his moves. He won with a nice moonsault after a Super Frankensteiner. We see Andrade arguing with Zelina a little bit more. Man, I don't know. I'm like,
this is what you do, okay? You turn Carrillo by having Zelina turn on Andrade. You make a baby face, you make a dastardly heel, you give Carrillo a character, and you've got an issue, a personal issue going forward through January, February. They're not going to do that. I'm sure they won't. They're going to put her with Aleister Black.
Oh God, that's such a bad idea.
Write it down right now. It's going to happen.
The last time I saw Aleister Black interact with her on TV, it got him under for me. He started to make jokes about her height, and I was like, "No, stop saying words on the show."
Aleister Black should never be in a room with a female. Just don't. It just ruins his character.
You know what? Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop 1 and 2. No love interest.
Bingo.
None.
Yeah.
None. Nothing to
I would say
distract
Aleister
him.
Black is the Eddie Murphy of WWE.
He does a mean shoulder roll, too. I bet right behind a car. I bet he does. The match I thought stole the show, WWE SmackDown Tag Team match, or Tag Team Championship match, New Day and the Revival. Whew, I mean, honestly, I've seen him wrestle at least once every month. Okay, fine. But they threw the ladder in, and all of a sudden I was way more excited. For a hot minute, I thought Team Ali G, Ali and Shorty G were going to end up in this. But this ends up being really good. But I don't know if you saw this on the pre-show. The Revival getting in Booker T's face and challenging him and Stevie Ray. And me, as a guy who has an interview with Stevie Ray in the can, I'm like, yeah, please. But I thought that was very cool. I dug that.
It was a fantastic match. You know, these four guys are going to have great matches. You know, just throw them out there, give them a ladder, and they're going to blow the roof off the place. I just wish, again, that there was any sort of personal issue here. There was any reason for them to hate each other. It's just...
Those titles hanging above the ring do it a little bit for me.
A little bit, but that's a crutch. The titles are storytelling crutches. They are not the icing on the cake. They're the cake. They're the whole cake. It's like, well, if it's not for the belt, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And that is the problem, is any match on this card that wasn't for the title, save for one match, was heatless. Yeah. Just dead. Everything else was just like...
There was a lot of heatless stuff on this show, especially as it progressed on. My only qualm with this, there were a couple of logic issues. The Revival had to wait on Kofi a couple times to bounce around. Big E set up like 3 ladders instead of just getting the title. But the offense in this was great. And WWE wrestlers specifically have adapted to selling really, really well these days, because a lot of people say, oh, nobody sells anymore. Well, there's a lot of things that have changed in wrestling. Like, last night, Max Holloway had his leg kicked out, and he was not selling that. He did not want anybody to know. But Scott Dawson took a stumble, and grabbed his knee and just screamed repeatedly. And I was like, oh my gosh, he Sid Vicious himself. Daniel Bryan's really good about this. He'll take a bump to the outside and he'll go like this, and you'll be like, no, it's it. It's the final concussion again.
Yep. He knows how to work you. Those people know how to work us, and selling is what creates drama. And if there's not great selling in a match, I tune out, because then it becomes a video game. You have to have expert selling. You have to have believable offense to make that selling meaningful in the course of the match. And these, the tag team championship match certainly had that in spades.
Yeah, Scott Dawson doing some flying drop kicks, Kofi with a tornado DDT, Trouble in Paradise, and he gets Shatter Machine. Big E does what we call the YOLO dive, and it always looks insane. I don't know how he's never been hurt doing that, but bless the man. Scott Dawson, as much as I enjoy his work, his ladder accuracy was about at a 12 if we were doing Madden ladder offense 2020, his accuracy is about a 12. He missed the ladder with Big E, which honestly kind of looked cool, but later on, he almost missed the ladder when it got smashed into his face, when the titles got smashed into his face too. There was a big ending off the ladder as well. I really loved how they switched up some of the offense in this and did things a little bit differently, because we're talking about really 20 years since ladder matches were happening multiple times a year. 25 years since ladder matches became a thing. It's hard to think of new stuff to do, Dave.
It is. That's why there is a problem with this pay-per-view. The idea of this pay-per-view is inherently flawed, because it's a pay-per-view designed around ladder matches or, gimmick matches, extremely violent matches. And you can't have that in every match on the card. My favorite match had no gimmicks, no titles on the line. It was the match right after the tag title match, Aleister Black and Buddy Murphy, which I thought was stellar and got the crowd into it, despite the fact that there were no belts hanging from the ceiling. There was no ladder. There was no chair. There was no table. None of that. It was just two guys kicking the shit out of each other, and I loved it.
Let's talk about one of the uphill battles that this match faced. Aleister Black wearing olive green gear.
And then, mismatched boots.
Yeah.
I guess that the one boot is, that's the Black Mass boot, so that's the one you're supposed to be aware of. But he looked like a Marine or something. Not the Marine, but a Marine.
Pretty early on, Black's nose gets what we can only assume is broken. There's lots of time killing kind of early on, and I wasn't that into it. I didn't think it was clicking. Then it did. When Black got his wits about him, boy, this got good. This got really good. He got the crowd back up for his offense, and they went back and forth. There was just this amazing knee from Black, then the cheeky Nando's hit, and a good power bomb from Buddy Murphy. And the exchange towards the end, I'm a dork for that stuff. I love good technical striking and counters to that. And this was it. There were good slips, ducks, strikes, combinations that would be effective. And then Black just uncorks a Black Mass and wins. This was exactly what I thought it needed to be. Buddy Murphy, in loss, did not lose anything. So when I had people last week saying, "Oh, Andrade's not hurt by losing to Humberto Carrillo, who loses every single week," I was like, "Yeah, he kind of is." When Buddy Murphy loses to Aleister Black, who doesn't lose at all, he's not hurt. This ruled, Dave.
That match was great. It was everything you want from a wrestling match in 2019. It was believable again. Believability is 90% of professional wrestling. If you believe that the guys are getting hurt, the drama of the match is going to go through the roof. And that was the case here, because both guys are great strikers, like you said, and they sell really well. If you put on a good performance and you lose, no one remembers that you lost. You remember who lost the ladder match at WrestleMania 10?
Yes.
Yes, well, you're a wrestling nerd, but most people are like, I remember it was an awesome match, but they don't think as much about who won. Because it didn't matter, because it made both of those guys careers. Do you remember who won the first TLC? Probably not. You probably don't remember that.
Edge and Christian.
Okay, you're a nerd again.
Well, I mean, they won like every TLC for a while.
Pretty much, yes. But it just doesn't. It doesn't hurt you if you go out there and you have a kick-ass match.
Sorry, I had muted myself. This was fantastic. I'm really excited to see if there is some sort of follow-up dynamic, but knowing WWE, what'll happen is we'll just see this match again tomorrow night.
Yep.
Like, that's the formula, usually. Oh, especially when old St. Nick's coming next week. We might see it. Yep. We might see it at the subsequent tapings as well.
And Buddy Murphy's going to win this time. And they're just going to keep flip-flopping.
I don't know. I think they will keep Aleister Black strong, but, man, Buddy Murphy, the way that guy willed himself into a position. Because he straight up told me, he was like, they did not want me on 205 Live. And I was like, well, what do you want me on? Because I'm not on anything right now. And he got himself in a crazy shape and changed his life. Not just changed his career, changed his life. So a lot of respect for him as well. WWE Raw Tag Team Championship Open Challenge. The Viking Raiders make an open challenge, and, well, here's the deal. One tag team. Let's see, what tag teams do we even have? Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins just got beat, right? And there's really not a lot else. AOP ain't going to be there yet. So you got the OC, who, by the way, were the only people to beat the Viking Raiders. Which still a little bit questionable to me. Because the Viking Raiders were supposed to win that, from what I understand, until a couple days before. But the Viking Raiders beat them like 5 times before that, Dave. So
yeah, this was the beginning of the end of this show, man.
Yeah.
This was the match that said, this is not going to be great. The rest of this is going to be really grim and slow and dull. This was an excuse to do a KFC ad. Let's be real. That's what this was for. This was to have the KFC table spot. That's it.
And do you think that Luke Gallows went out of his way to shoot down the idea of him getting the biscuits and gravy?
I'm glad that you made that connection because nobody else on Twitter did.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. This match was okay.
Stinker. It was a stinker.
Yeah, like, it was whatever, man. Like, the thing is, people were like, okay, well, the Viking Raiders got to get their win back. Well, they didn't, but they had already beaten this team 5 times.
Yeah, the work was fine. You know, when you get to this level in professional wrestling, the work is always going to be fine. It's always going to be good enough.
For example, but, the drop... Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, the work is fine, but if it doesn't have a personal issue, if the teams aren't heated up, which the OC is not. If you're doing a mystery opponent reveal and it's a team that you've seen wrestle this same team 5 times in a row and lose, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
It was a popcorn match.
Well, it's a popcorn chicken match, actually. But
you did it.
I did it. My favorite spot of this match was the drop-down trip that ended up happening probably on accident. Because when you do a drop down, that's what you're supposed to do. Whenever I see wrestlers drop straight down, they're doing it wrong. You're supposed to slide underneath somebody's legs because you want to trip them. You want to ground them. You want to put their back on the mat. These guys didn't miss a beat. I like that. Ivar, however, missed by a mile on the handspring elbow. It didn't look good. Gallows breaks up a pin off the Viking Experience. And I'll tell you, the biggest problem I have with this was not the double count out. I can't remember which it was, Eric or Ivar. How dare he clear the food off the table? The crowd booed it.
You know what? It was probably a mandate from KFC. You can put them through the table, but don't wreck the food.
It was just half of it, though. He left some of it on there. I think he heard the boos, and he was like, nah, sorry, KFC. Because the thing is, like, I remember the early days of table breaks in WWF when they would still have those big-ass CRT monitors up there because they didn't have the delay or anything. So you'd see, like, Bret Hart get knocked off the apron into those, and those 2 heavy-ass monitors would just fly through the air and always land on somebody. I think Ahmed Johnson hit like a modified pro over plunge on someone through one, and it happened too. I wanted to see the famous bowl and the chicken breast doing the same thing. I wanted to see the mashed potatoes flying into the audience. That's what I was here for the whole time. And I can't believe it didn't happen. Also, shocking that Marty Scurll did not debut here eating chicken. Man, what a disappointment.
Well, you can't have it all.
Yeah, John Cena's annual pay-per-view streak ended. This was a good spot for him. TLC match. Oh, god damn, man. So I'll say the highlight of this match for me, Dave, was Roman Reigns destroying like all of Corbin's cohorts at the beginning. And Corbin wearing wrist tape. Highlights of the match.
I hate that spot, actually. I'm going to send my goons out after the good guy, and he's just going to wail on him and throw him off the stage. Of course they're going to get their ass kicked. It's not exciting anymore. We know that these guys are basically non-playable characters from a video game.
Yes.
That they're just dudes in black costumes that are there to get punched. There's no drama to it anymore. I don't believe that these people are a threat to Roman Reigns. I don't believe that most people are a threat to Roman Reigns. It took... And this is a guesstimate on my part because I didn't count during the show. At least 7 people to beat Roman Reigns tonight.
Yeah. So
it took 7 people to beat him.
I was gonna mention I am a fan of the beat 'em up video game era. So that's probably why I like this so much. I like kicking the living shit out of foot soldiers. I'm a fan of that. Then you get to the end, you got to fight Metalhead or Slash or whatever the semi boss is there. But this match wasn't good. Oh man.
Nope.
Reigns got a table to the joy of the crowd, and Corbin hit a pretty nice choke slam through it. But Corbin gets help from Dolph Ziggler, who has some really good timing with a super kick. But when I hear a 39-year-old man in Dolph Ziggler screaming, "Listen to your king when you're commanded to," I was like, oh, man.
Yeah, this feud is mostly incredibly corny. The whole king gimmick is a relic of the 20th century. The last time a king gimmick really worked was probably Booker T. It's just, I've seen this so many times. The only reason why this was a TLC match was so it could be no DQ, so they could have the interference. And then Roman loses. Nobody gets over from this. Corbin doesn't get over because he had an entire army to beat Roman Reigns. The match wasn't for anything. You know, the idea of the locker room leader is such an overused cliche on WWE programming now, but it doesn't mean anything because these guys are all supposed to hate each other.
Yeah.
They're not a football team, man. There's no leader. If you say that there's a locker room leader, that's the implication is that these guys all hang out together.
Yeah.
And that they're fighting a common cause. They're not. They're fighting each other.
Last month, I was asking people, like, what is with this brand warfare gimmick? Like, what? Why? Why would they care? First off, they all just got drafted. And somebody was like, oh, they travel the world with these guys. And I'm like, they bang each other's wives in storyline.
Yep.
Like
they are beating the shit out of each other week after week, and they're all going for the same prize, which is the WWE Championship or the Universal Championship. So what does being a locker room leader mean? What does it mean when Roman Reigns loses the locker room? They should all hate him.
Yeah.
And he should hate all of them.
Baron Corbin, I thought, was rehabilitated with the King of the Ring tournament. Not necessarily subsequently with his portrayal of that crappy gimmick, because he's been made to look like an absolute dork ever since. He had outstanding one-on-one matches, usually with clean endings in that tournament. And I was like, all right, I get it. And the thing is, his in-ring, when he doesn't slow a match to a crawl with a half Nelson crossface, I think is pretty good. Like, he's a very innovative wrestler and often does not get the credit for that. Deep Six rules. I love that ripcord slam he does, and I love End of Days. And also, I love how dedicated he is to protecting his finishing move. I love that. But he is made to look like a joke all the time. And maybe that's the direction. I know it's the direction they want to go because it's the direction they've went. But I was like, did he need to be King of the Ring if you were going to do that? Like, not really, because it didn't add anything. It just gave him a stupid, as you mentioned, crutch to lean on. Oh, I'm the king, and I wear this Game of Thrones-inspired gear now, and whatever. Like, we didn't need an excuse for him to change his shitty gear.
Right. He's a king now. He was a constable before. They just keep putting different costumes on the same guy.
Yeah.
And I think Baron Corbin's a super talented person and a smart guy and a good heel. But the way that they portray his character, like you said, is a dork. He's not. There's no personal issue again. He wants to be a locker room leader, or he wants people to kiss his ring or bow to him, or like, it's all cheap heat in his promos about how the town sucks, or how Roman Reigns is actually a puppy dog or a chihuahua or something. Like, none of it connects on an emotional level the way that you watch an MJF promo. An MJF makes you believe that he really hates Cody Rhodes. I don't believe Baron Corbin anytime he talks. That said, he's still a talent. It's just that they're writing crap for him.
Yeah, I thought he came across best on Breaking Ground in 2015 when it was like, I couldn't tell if it was half real, half not, where he's like, you know what? I didn't have to wrestle in smelly-ass gyms. I didn't have to wrestle in front of a bunch of dorks. I wrestled for WWE from the get-go, and that's how I've been. And I thought that was his best go of it. I thought that was the most natural thing. Eventually, Ziggler attacks Reigns with a chair, and the Revival come out and hit a Shatter Machine. End of Days wins it. This whole thing just screamed Sheamus winning the title at the end of 2015.
Yep.
And the thing is, that was a panic move because Seth Rollins tore his knee to shreds. This isn't like a panic move. There were a lot of people not on this show. Braun Strowman's dealing with an injury, whatever. Randy Orton was not on this show. AJ Styles was not on this show. Bayley was not on this show. Sasha Banks was not there. Daniel Bryan did not wrestle on this show. They left a lot of people off. And
so that they could have the Raw Tag Team Championship match with the KFC tie-in.
Yeah.
Think about that. Baron Corbin is a big, nasty heel when you look at him. Just like a real bruiser, a legitimate tough guy, and they have him cutting comedy promos. So when this match ends and nobody gets over, that's the reason why.
We'll go back to Roman Reigns and the like in a bit. Bray Wyatt defeated The Miz. We see a video package that is way too long for this.
Yep.
And
was it longer than the match? It felt like it.
Might have been. And let me tell you, I wouldn't know what was in the video package because I went downstairs and made myself a hot cocoa and came back up and it was still going on. So there's no reaction for Bray Wyatt initially. And as the entrance goes on, he really is able to get the crowd into it and pick it up. And he's like, I'm really excited for this. And it is a categorically different character than what we've seen in The Fiend. And I dig that. I even wondered if it would result in The Miz winning. And the thing is, he very well could have in this match. They didn't quite explain, and I hope he does, just why he didn't shoot the half and pin the guy after he hit a skull-crushing finale. I know Bray Wyatt kind of sat up a little bit and laughed, but Miz attacked, and that skull-crushing finale hit after a missed Sister Abigail. Miz would break Wyatt's arm, and I got to say my favorite part of the match was Bray running full speed into the barricade to reset his arm. That was cool. And Sister Abigail wins it. I did not like this match, though.
This was my least favorite match on the entire show, which is saying a lot because we've already talked about the Raw Tag Team title match. But the psychology was all over the place. He's rope-a-doping and laughing, and Miz is basically working heel, which destroys the momentum of the match, which is grinds the match to a halt because the audience doesn't know what to think. Are we supposed to be cheering? Are we supposed to be booing? How are we supposed to feel right now? Bray is an incredibly creative, clever guy, and this character is 90% him, maybe more.
Yeah,
and it's all from his brain. And this part of it didn't work to me. It didn't work because if he comes out here in the sweater and he's grinning and smiling and stuff, he's almost a babyface. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why he has to have this bifurcated personality where he does this, the videos, the Firefly Funhouse vignettes, and then when he comes to the ring, he's a scary guy in the mask. Because if he comes out waving to the crowd and hugging people and getting them to cheer, then he's going to bury whichever babyface he's working with. And then when Bryan comes out, people are excited to see Bryan, but it's not the kind of reaction I think they wanted to get, where people were so happy to see him save The Miz.
Why wasn't this a championship match if he was just going to retain it anyway?
To put the doubt in your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I see that, but yeah, I guess so. But that was really the only doubt I had in this match, so I get that.
It was basically a squash.
Yeah.
It was a squash match with a bunch of heatless Miz offense.
Yeah, and then Bray Wyatt hits his finish and wins.
Yeah.
And
yep.
I'm okay with that. Sure, Miz is whatever. I mean, the thing is, a lot of people are like, "Oh, Miz is done." No, Miz is never done. I thought he was done when he was a babyface in like 2014, and then he got hotter than ever. So
The Miz is always one promo away from being the biggest star in the company.
Yeah,
that's all it takes, is give him the microphone in the right situation. I thought he did a great job in the lead up to this. It's just that the match, the concept of the match and the way it was produced was antithetical to crowd participation and heat. It was the exact opposite of getting heat.
You mentioned Bray Wyatt's creativity and all that. Like, I spoke to Matt Hardy a while back for an interview, and he explained to me, him explaining the Broken Universe to other people. He was like, I had to have a 30-minute conversation with Vince McMahon, and he was like, I don't quite get it, but I know that some people like it. He said that he even got some resistance from Jeff Hardy, where Jeff Hardy was, I don't know, man. But when he told Bray Wyatt, Bray was like, yeah, I get it. I completely relate to this. I see your vision for this. I think that kind of says a lot. This was the first Bray Wyatt match we had seen since 2018. He showed up at the end of that year. He did Starrcade and a couple other spots on live events. But other than that, this is the first match that Bray Wyatt, instead of The Fiend, has had since August 2018. And it's wild to think that he didn't wrestle on TV for a year.
Yeah, he was fully healthy for months. And they spent so much time on the creative for this. And to go back to the explanations of how people in the wrestling industry are sold on a concept that's far out. Bray Wyatt had to convince Vince McMahon that this was a good idea. Mm-hmm. If you've never worked in WWE or don't know a lot about the inner workings of the wrestling business, you wouldn't realize how remarkable that is.
Yeah,
that this insane character is something that he got a 74-year-old or 75-year-old man who doesn't watch television or see movies to say yes to. Vince didn't get the Broken Universe, but he said yes to Bray Wyatt, and Bray Wyatt is a champion. That's crazy.
It's wild, the series of events that unfolded to kind of birth this situation, because if he hadn't had that car wreck last year, if he hadn't been going through some personal stuff, if he hadn't had a kid and had some time off there, you don't know what his television situation would have been. I know there was a little bit of heat on him last summer because of some of those situations. Not the kid being born, but the crash and him missing TV because of some personal stuff that took him out of action during a tag title run. And he was, like you said, healthy. He was healthy. He popped up after months at Starrcade last year. US Bank Arena, place came unglued for him. Worked a couple of holiday tour main events, and then they're just no, off TV for a while. It's nuts the way that works, and probably the best thing that could have happened to him, all things considered.
Yeah, he's gone from being on the pre-show of WrestleMania in the Battle Royal to probably, most likely, the main event.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if him and Roman is the main event at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that either. Well, I'll tell you what's not going to be. Lashley and Rusev.
Whew.
This tables match. Rusev earlier says that he would be elated if Lashley marries Lana. And I love this because he was like, legally, I won't have to pay alimony. So I'd be pretty stoked about that. And I like that. They made sense of that. Cool. I didn't care about this match, and it felt like nobody else did either. And you could tell that they created a big, like, babyface heat spot where Rusev would come back and start beating Lashley with the kendo stick, and they expected the crowd to just go crazy. They did not.
Nope.
My favorite spot of this match is where Lashley is on the apron. Rusev knocks him off, but Lashley just jumps over the table. That was like the lone high spot for me. This is not exactly like, this is not good stuff, man.
They spent so much time, weeks and weeks of television, building this story, making you hate Lana, making Lashley despicable, making you sympathetic for Rusev. All these absurd things happen, from arrests and restraining orders and divorce angles and babies, and it was like an Attitude Era angle, as everybody's already said. So for the match to then be this tepid is just like you pop the balloon and it just goes limp. There was nothing to this match. I think back to some of the great, garbage angles of all time, like Vince versus Shane at WrestleMania 17, and Linda in the coma, and Vince having an affair with Trish Stratus, and that match paid off one of the dumbest angles of all time, but one of the best dumb angles of all time. Yeah. There's run-ins, there's garbage cans, there's Linda rising from her chair and kicking Vince in the nuts, and all this stuff that got the crowd, frothing at the mouth by the end of it. This didn't even have that. It had none of that. There was no Gaga. Lana wasn't really involved in the match, even though she was basically the one that everyone wanted to see get beat up. But of course she can't, because it's a man-on-woman situation. WWE doesn't do that. Yeah. So Lashley has to be the one for Rusev to fight. Lashley's not really heated up in this entire scenario. And then he wins, and it's just no one cares. This is not about Lashley and Rusev. It's about Lana and Rusev. And Lashley is just the third wheel in this whole thing. So of course there's no heat, because nobody wants to see those two guys fight. They want to see Lana and Rusev.
I'll tell you what, if popping balloons leaves you limp and you want to rise like Linda McMahon and give your nuts a little bit of a shot, whether you're breaking tables or backboards, my friend, headboards, doesn't matter. BlueChew.com has you covered. Same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, you know they work a hell of a lot better than this match did. But they work up to twice as fast. It's chewable, so it gets into your system a lot faster. You can take it on a full or empty stomach, and you're going to save a lot of time. You don't have to schedule a doctor's appointment. You don't have to go to the pharmacy. It's prescribed online. It's shipped straight to your door. Straight to your door. Do you know what that means, Dave?
Yeah, it means I don't have to leave my house to get my boner pills.
And because it's discreet, you're not going to have the mailman walking up with this package saying, "Wow, are these for your dick?"
Yeah, you're going to be walking up with your own package.
Exactly.
And it's going to be a big one. Like, oversized.
You're going to be like, "Hands off my package. I didn't give you consent, sir." Consent is also important. BlueChew.com, code Fightful. Get that first shipment free. All you got to do is pay $5 shipping. Check it out, my friends. Hit them up at BlueChew on Twitter. Let them know you heard about them from us. My God, let me tell you, your experience with BlueChew is going to be a much better experience than WWE TLC 2019, at least the latter half of this show. Oh, man.
I popped a BlueChew before we started recording, and that's why you can only see so far down, because I don't want to reveal. I don't want to reveal.
Yeah, you don't want to get this channel terminated, too.
The finished product, yeah. God.
My God, pals. So eventually, Yeah, I'm with you on all your points. Lashley couldn't spear Rusev through the table and had to suplex him. Ugh. And the thing is, I'm less forgivable to pay-per-view matches than TV matches, especially pay-per-view matches they've spent so much television time on, Dave.
You can't blow you can't ruin the blow off. You can't skimp on the payoff of these long-term angles. And I felt that way with Miz and Bray. That should have been a TV match, considering it was 90% angle advancement, storyline advancement, as opposed to a blow-off wrestling match. But it was essentially the blow-off for Miz versus Bray. And then with this, weeks, months of television for a match that basically didn't get started.
Well, the main event got started, and it couldn't end soon enough for me. I thought this match was a trash fire, and that's mind-boggling to me with the ingredients involved. A women's tag team match, a women's tag team title match, TLC match, and I just thought this was bad. Kairi Sane looked out of it, and
she was concussed. Yeah,
I would not be shocked at all to learn she was concussed because, quite frankly, she had a bad match, and that does not happen. I don't think I've seen a bad Kairi Sane match, and this was one. This was probably the worst thing I've ever seen her involved in, and it just wasn't good all around.
I think it was the worst match from all four of them.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, I would agree. There was a spot where Kairi jumped off the apron to put them through a table, and it's weird because WWE's own shitty production saved it because I couldn't see what happened. And it was one of those few instances where WWE is so bad with their camera zooms that I didn't really miss anything because it needed to be missed. But there were some spots that I couldn't stand where Becky Lynch and Charlotte are standing next to a ladder that they've set up in the ring. Both of them. Asuka's out of it, and Kairi just starts throwing stuff, and nobody's climbing that ladder. And I have everybody saying like, "Oh, calm down, just enjoy it." No, eat my ass. That doesn't make sense.
There's nothing to enjoy if nothing makes sense.
It doesn't make sense. And somebody was like, "Oh, it's fake. It's fake." Well, yeah, no shit. You can tell it is right there. That is so dumb. And the thing is, did I think it was funny that Kairi is throwing stuff? Yeah. But then she goes under the ring. So now you have Asuka laid out. And you have Kairi underneath the ring. Nobody's going to get them. All they got to do is climb up the ladder. But they pull her out and they get fire extinguished.
We got to find her. No, you don't. No, if she just stays down there for the rest of the match, you guys win.
The jobber that faced Eric Rowan last week is smarter in storyline than the two maybe most over women in WWE recent history. It doesn't make sense. This
is another match where there's no real personal issue. They haven't had any sort of story where you care who wins or loses. The match starts off illogical, and then Kairi gets a concussion, most likely. And then they carry on putting her through tables. There was the spot where Charlotte has to deadlift her up to put her through the table with the power bomb.
Yeah.
Like, at some point in your head, don't you say, "Oh God, she's in trouble. Maybe I shouldn't keep beating the crap out of her." Where's the referee? Who's on headset with the referee? Someone has to know. Someone in Gorilla has to be like, get her out of the match.
It was bad, man. I felt bad for her throughout the entire thing.
I knew it was all messed up when she couldn't take a bump off the spear.
Yeah.
On the floor. I was like, okay, yep, it's not Charlotte's fault.
Probably the best spots of the match was Charlotte taking a bump through a table outside. Becky flying ass dropping Asuka through a table was pretty good. That was pretty tough. But this was just not good.
Charlotte
did have to power bomb her through a table, and it was a nasty looking power bomb. But
horrible bump.
It just
It's
didn't. It just did not make sense. And the thing is, all these people that are like, it was written that way. No shit, Sherlock. I am not condemning Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. They did not agent the match, I would assume.
Yeah, they're not allowed to do stuff like
yes,
that.
They're not allowed to. I had agents that had flat out told me a lot of guys get grief when they call stuff in the ring unless their name is John Cena, and even he would have Arn producing everything. They got to make sense of things, and it kind of, I don't want to say it buried the concept of the tag titles. It didn't bury it, but it did make it look like they didn't give a shit about it. And they've come a long way with those tag team titles lately. Since Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross won them, they were defended regularly, and I think Asuka and Kairi Sane have defended them every single month, and at Starrcade and all that. They're making it important. And
the main evented the show.
It main evented the show, and Asuka, one of those tag champions, has Becky's number. I don't think that she should have hit Becky with a chair and lost her even by DQ on Monday, but she's got Becky Lynch's number. And I like that. I love the finish. I love having the rope there and pulling the ladder over. I thought that was very clever. That was about the highlight of this match to me because I thought it was real bad.
It's almost like they planned the finish and then they wrote they came up with the spots backwards. It's like, okay, well, what if we have this thing where there's a rope tied to the ladder and we pull it? Well, that's cool. Let's do that. But then everything else just felt like the worst kind of indie spot fest.
Yeah.
And I love independent wrestling. I love spot heavy matches. But this was just unmotivated spot after unmotivated spot with no momentum, no false finishes, no drama. Obviously, Kyrie being knocked out didn't help, but it wasn't good before that. So it's not like, oh, this ruined a perfectly good match. It was completely confused and nonsensical long before Kyrie went out of the match.
I love Asuka winning. That's how it should happen. It's very clearly to set up Becky Lynch versus Asuka for the Royal Rumble, and if they're not, it's dumb. But, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, too. Asuka beat Becky Lynch at last year's Royal Rumble. She has beaten her, and I've mentioned this over and over, tag team matches, triple threat matches, TLC matches, Royal Rumble matches even. There isn't a match type that Asuka has not beaten Becky Lynch in, and not many people can say that.
I don't think Becky Lynch has been pinned or submitted, lost a singles match since the Royal Rumble this year.
Yeah.
I think
she got pinned by Asuka in a tag team match.
Okay. Well, I mean, a singles in a singles.
Okay. Yes. Correct.
Tags. I'm trying not to count, but in a singles match, I think the last person to beat her was Asuka at Royal Rumble. So it's a perfect story. This again felt like a TV match because it wasn't the blow off. It was another step towards the eventual blow off, which makes me feel like, why did I watch it?
Yeah.
Why am I paying $9.99 for the network if this is just going to be another episode of Raw or SmackDown?
And even then, I'm pretty sure that the only two people that have beaten Becky Lynch since really, God, I want to say Money in the Bank 2018 are Charlotte and Asuka. That's it. She's been supremely protected, and she's given good stuff to work with usually, and as a result, she's super over. It's amazing how that works. Amazing. Oh, damn. So
the show wasn't over after there was something after that.
It wasn't over. So actually, before this, we see a brawl breaking out backstage because the Street Profits are backstage talking that shit as they do. But you see Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin brawling. You see Gable and Buddy Murphy brawling. You see Big E and Ziggler brawling, and then Kofi and the Revival. I was able to match them up accordingly. I don't know the cause of this, the rhyme or reason. I do think it was hilarious that Street Profits were like, yeah, we're just going to stomp Buddy Murphy out with Chad Gable. Why not? Because this very much seemed like, I don't know what caused this, but it's also inter-promotional too. Like which I hope doesn't carry over to Raw and SmackDown because I don't want it to. Hopefully it's billed for the Royal Rumble. Then the show closes by Roman Reigns hitting a spear off of a stage onto a pile, and they fall like dominoes. Kind of actually, it's super fake, but kind of impressive how it unfolded. What'd you think of all this?
I thought it was a horrible way to end the show. I was upset that the Revival were not selling the effects of the ladder match and came out to help Baron Corbin in his match with Roman Reigns. But then I'm doubly upset when Roman Reigns comes out and has a brawl to end the show when he should be selling the beatdown that he took at the end of that match. So essentially, the match itself didn't affect him at all. Sure, he lost, but he didn't have to go to a local medical facility. He didn't have to get stitches. He didn't have to get checked for any sort of head trauma. He didn't go home. He's on the hunt. The big dog's on the hunt. So that match was for nothing because he didn't suffer at all. It was Hogan must pose. It was Roman's got to end the show. We're not gonna have this in the show and be the main event for some reason, because we have to have the women's tag title match be the main event, so we can, crow about that and we put the women at the end of the show. Look at how progressive we are, but the main event is still Roman Reigns wherever you put him on the card, because of things like this.
I thought that even though I didn't like the Carrillo Andrade stomp spot and it completely ruined the match for me, that and the first two matches, I was like, damn, all right, this is going to be a good show.
Yeah, I did too.
I've never seen one go downhill and stay downhill that much. And the thing is, normally I'd be excited by a show-ending segment like what we saw, but how much I've seen the brand split be bastardized over the past year to the point to where it's really restricted the growth of a lot of people and restricted the growth of a lot of creative, and it's been so lazy, I'm not. Let me ask you, based on who wasn't booked to wrestle on this show, could there have been a better, more interesting card just comprised of those people? Because we're talking AJ Styles, AOP, Rollins, Owens, Mysterio, Lesnar, Ricochet, Bayley, Sasha, Orton, Daniel Bryan, Nakamura, the 24/7 title even. There were no singles titles defended on this show.
You could have put together a hell of a card with just the people that were not on this show, as you rightfully pointed out. I don't know what they were thinking. I in my head, I feel like this show was an afterthought. As they're booking the year, Survivor Series is this big sort of inter-promotional all-star game gimmick, and they spend all this time getting NXT over because they want to beat AEW on Wednesday nights. But then they have to throw together a gimmick pay-per-view. So they're scrambling to figure out who's going to be on the card, what matches they're going to do, what matches they can give away that they're not going to put on the Royal Rumble. Basically, it's like, well, we don't want to waste a bunch of big hot matches that we could put on the Royal Rumble, so let's put Miz and Bray Wyatt together, even though the story's not about them. It's going to be a squash match. Let's just put it on it because we need to fill a card. That's really all this was, is just a bunch of filler and a couple really strong, fun matches interspersed amongst the filler.
And I think we are 6 weeks from the Royal Rumble, and a couple of those are holiday weeks, so I am not optimistic about the build.
This is going to be a grim period of time. Holidays are always pretty tough for WWE. The period of time between Survivor Series and this pay-per-view was what, 2.5 weeks?
Yes.
Something really brief. So that's why it was rushed and why it felt rushed and why it felt inconsequential. But now, like you said, we've got 6 weeks until the Royal Rumble, which is going to be a big show. And I'm sure they're going to go all out to fill up that baseball stadium. But I'm not optimistic either that these next 3 weeks are going to be fun. I feel like they cram the build into the last week and a half or 2 weeks, and then 4 weeks of nothing happening.
As things stand, who's your prediction to win the men's and women's Royal Rumble?
Whew, this is a good question. Women's Royal Rumble, Sasha Banks.
Fair.
I think Sasha and Bayley is going to happen.
It'd be good.
I don't know why, but I feel like
should have last year.
I don't know where they would take Bayley other than that.
Should have 2018 and maybe 19, or no, 2018. Then they probably should have been a tag team in 2019.
Right. Ugh. And then men's, it's tough because you have to ask yourself, what are going to be the two big title matches at WrestleMania?
Or if NXT is going to be involved. If NXT is involved, I could see maybe Ciampa either making like a final spot or something like that, because they're clearly doing a thing where he can't get to the title that he never lost type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, NXT would have at least a match on the WrestleMania card.
Yeah.
I think it's past time that they start doing that.
Yeah.
But if I had to be a betting man, I'm going to say Roman Reigns.
Yeah,
because I think the Lesnar match is going to be Cain Velasquez again, or some sort of like part-timer gimmick, and so I think it's going to be Roman going after Bray,
and he's going to eliminate Corbin to win.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely,
and
yeah,
it's going to be so like when it was Big Show and Kane, and I can't remember who the hell else it was that was in there, and it was like very clear.
Was that 2014, 2015?
Maybe. Yeah.
I think it's 20. Yeah, I think it's 2014.
No pun intended, but woof.
All right.
My God. Some plugs, guys. FightfulSelect.com. Make sure you guys subscribe there and breaking news there often. We have a Facebook discussion group. Head over there. But we are working to get our channel back. We'll see where that goes. But Dave, tell the good people where they can find you.
You can follow me on Twitter at Dave_Schilling, and I have a newsletter at daveschilling.substack.com. If you subscribe, you'll get tonight's TLC review, where I say a lot of the same things, but with more profanity. I also review Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, AEW, and NXT every week. So check that out. I think it's well worth your time and potentially your money. For $5 a month, you can get all that content plus extras. So check it out. I also did a Q&A with some of the readers about my time in WWE.
Ooh.
So there's some real hot tidbits in there that you might find interesting.
Guys, well worth it. Make sure you guys check Dave out. Let us know what you think, and make sure you give him good feedback too, so he can continue to grow that as well. Leave a thumbs up on this. Make sure you all subscribe. Check out the other content I have here. I have like a 3.5 hour like video interview marathon up, and a couple other podcasts. Got to get those watch hours up so I can monetize this joint. But till next time, guys, thank you all so much. We're out.